What's poppin'? I'm CL, and I've made it back from the depths of hell to show you guys more art and character designs. Since I've been gone, I've been using nostalgia to keep me going in these trying times. So I revisited Mattel's Forgotten Gem. Ever After High, much like many of the cartoons in the early 2010s, had me in a chokehold. This show/web series was produced by Mattel to do, well, the only thing Mattel is really known for: to sell dolls. Much like all their other dolls, Ever After High produced high fashion dolls with really solid quality and bright exaggerated designs meant to consume the minds of children. Which it did! I was the children! Although, funnily enough, I never owned any of the dolls. And that's probably for good reason. Have you seen what some of them are wearing? Some designs, I feel, stay cohesive to the character while being high fashion, while other times I feel like the character designs get a little lost in the sauce.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Which is why I'd like to reimagine them in outfits that I think better suit their characters. Ever After High follows characters Raven Queen and Apple White, among other fairy tale characters who attend, you guessed it, Ever After High, a boarding school meant to teach the descendants of significant fairy tale characters how to live out their roles and complete their destiny. Raven, as her surname would suggest, is the daughter of the Evil Queen, and is expected to commit atrocities against Apple White, Snow White's daughter. You pretty much find out immediately, however, that Raven isn't very keen on the idea, as it comes with a side of eternal isolation, and proclaims on what is known as Legacy Day, a day in which they swear to adhere to their legacies, that she won't sign the Storybook of Legends, a magical book that ensures that each character is bound to their story. This rightfully takes Apple and everyone else at Ever After High by surprise, successfully dividing the school into two opposing parties: the Royals and the Rebels. Now, as a child, I ate this shit up! I've always been a fan of characters subverting expectations and fighting for what they think is right. And as a result, for a long time I viewed Apple as an antagonist, as she was vehemently against anyone pursuing a destiny outside of their own. And it wasn't until I rewatched the first season as an adult that I began to view her through a different lens. Because here's the thing, imagine you've lived your whole life being told that you're destined for greatness and will be given the title as the Queen of Queens. You'll face very brief turmoil and then live the life of your dreams with the man that you love. And then one day, the key player necessary to make this future a reality says, yeah, no, I'm good. It's not surprising that, after hearing this revelation, Apple White is still insistent that Raven should reconsider. But more importantly, it's imperative that we remember this situation holds greater nuance. To some extent, both parties could be seen as selfish and selfless in their own right. Apple, much like everyone else, has been persuaded by the headmaster that divvying from the original narrative will cause them and everyone in their story to cease to exist. Something Apple certainly doesn't want, but Raven isn't too convinced is true. But despite not knowing for sure if this actually is the truth, is inevitably putting everyone else in her story at risk. Which, if it is true, then they'll all die, because she doesn't want to be evil, which would inadvertently make her the villainess she's so desperately trying to avoid. Ever After High does a great job of exploring themes of privilege, entitlement, and choice in a way that's easily digestible for children, encouraging them to question the world around them and learn to explore and develop their identities. And that is something that I'll forever love about this show. Despite that, this show is still far from perfect. The true enemy of this show is pacing and structure, both of which it lacks. I love the concept, and there are a lot of fun and interesting dynamics presented between each character, as they analyze whether creating their own destinies is something within their grasps. Yet, at least as far as season 1 is concerned, we run through every plot point in 5 minutes, and any form of conflict aside from the primary discourse only lasts at best 10 minutes, if that. Despite the high stakes, very rarely do they express any emotion beyond the surface level, and it surely doesn't help that each season only has about 4 episodes. Let's say, in another life, if this show was given its time in the sun, I would want them to show the progression of these characters' inner conflict as it festers, and their problems become aspects of their lives they can no longer ignore. From the moment we meet Raven, she complains how everyone views her as a villain without her doing anything. And to an extent, that makes sense. It isn't unreasonable to think people would be a bit apprehensive of her, given her destiny and her predecessors. Yet, we don't see much of this animosity firsthand. On occasion, people may run or scream, but that's really only when her emotions get elevated and she exerts spurts of energy. Otherwise, everybody pretty much treats her like everyone else, with the exception of Apple, of course. I want Raven to embody her role as a villainess. I want her to be menacing, gritty, cutthroat, and short-tempered. I don't know, commit arson if she has to, if nothing more than to prove a point. She, much like everyone else, is under the assumption that they have no real choice in the matter. And if she's meant to be evil, then she'll show people a true villain. However, no matter how hard she tries, it never quite feels right. The screams of terror are jarring, and she can no longer meet her gaze in the mirror. The pain she inflicts is eating away at her. But above all else, nothing could have prepared her for the crippling loneliness that comes with being exiled and isolated. She's no fan of Apple, for more reasons than one, but it's certainly not because she's the fairest in the land. Raven has never hated Apple, and she's far from wanting to kill her. However, that doesn't change Apple from being a constant reminder of the atrocities she's expected to commit, and is a living figure of someone she can never be. For Apple is a girl who smiles and twirls her hair. Animals and people alike can't help but follow and wait on her every whim. By contrast, I want Apple's naivety to continue to function as a point of animosity. Apple gives little thought to the pros and cons of the roles in which each character must play. She accepts it as a fact of life, and it helps in her case that her story holds very little strife, but great rewards. My Apple isn't just a stickler for rules, she's the embodiment of them. She lives her life as a means to portray the most idealistic version of Snow White. She doesn't get angry or hold grudges. She must always be kind and soft-spoken. And she can't be laid back, as she's destined to be a queen who rules over all. Someone who should exemplify grace and modesty at all times. There is no room for interpretation, and I want this to suffocate Apple. Much like Raven, I want them to feel trapped and weighed down by the expectations of their stories. Apple will spend all her time preparing herself to be something exceptional, that she never stops to consider what life would be like without the pressure of excellence, which leads to her losing it with Raven when she dares to challenge the entirety of what she believes in. Raven's not just challenging the status quo, she's placing Apple's entire life into question, making their conflict both an internal and external one, causing a domino effect that will once again place every student's perception of their lives into question. Watching Raven as she takes a step away from being the monster everyone expects her to be, to live a life completely of her own creation, while Apple fights to hold on to the semblance of normality and structure she once had. Fearing anything outside of her destiny is far more terrifying than the small box she's been forced to live in. I wouldn't say my revisions are all that different from the original, but rather I want to place a greater importance on exploring the character's psyche and how that impacts how they interact with the world around them. Raven is destined to be a queen, much like Apple. But as she fights against that mold, I wanted her outfit to go against the grain of dresses and skirts that surround Ever After High's female cast. I wanted to maintain the feather theme, however, and so I incorporated it as a centerpiece for her blouse, and even went a little crazy and added a cape, because I just thought it looked good. A chain corset seemed like a fun nod to how she's chained to the bitter ending of a fallen queen, and I made many of her features sharp, as characters that are meant to present an air of danger often have elements that make them appear as unapproachable or on edge. On the other hand, I wanted Apple to function as the epitome of grace and class. I felt her living every day in a sleek ball gown would be fitting. I tried to incorporate as many nods to Apple's as possible, my favorite example being the puffed sleeves. I don't often draw animals, but I love the idea of animals surrounding her non-stop, as they're just innately drawn to her. It's a cute idea to me that she knows every animal by name, and they're like a second family to her. The only living beings she feels she can be upfront and honest with. This show was always swimming in potential, and I fear we never really got the chance to really get into the minds of these characters, and all that was on the line for them, even if their stories were considered to have happy endings. But aside from complex interpersonal relationships and ideals, the show presented a lot of interesting questions to story dynamics that I feel are left unanswered. Like if Charming is truly Apple's betrothed, or when you think about it for too long, whether some of these characters might be related, and I don't mean this at the surface level. Given that so many of these characters have siblings, I mean the Charming brothers are seemingly destined to marry other princesses. But the only way for these princesses to be descendants of the previous pairings would mean some of them would have to share at least one parent. And don't even get me started on the fact that Raven would have to marry Apple's father for the story to play out as it was originally intended. I could truly go on and on about my thoughts on this show and how it holds a really special place in my heart. I would love to redesign more of the cast and develop new plot lines and motivations that ignite the character action or inaction, if that's something you guys are interested in. Please leave a comment telling me what you think. Feel free to like the video and give the subscribe button a hug. They too wish to have someone during cuffing season. This script took a lot out of me, so don't be surprised if I go back into hiding. Thanks so much for watching, and let's have a good year.